Hello.
Hello.
We're back.
Yes, we are finally.
And yes, that's a fan that you hear in the background.
Because it's hot.
Because it's hot.
So, yeah, I'm Austin.
I'm Greg, and this is the Fill in the Blank podcast.
Life after film school.
And you might be thinking to yourself, oh, I thought this podcast didn't exist anymore. Why did this appear in my iTunes when the last one was here at the end of April?
Yeah, well, you'd be wrong. You'd be wrong.
It always exists.
It exists. It's here for you.
Yeah. Not always when you need it.
No. It may not be here when you want it,
but it's here when you need it.
It's here when you need it.
Yeah. This is the podcast you deserve.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right.
No, it was just, people get busy.
Yeah. Well, especially you got big things coming up.
Yeah, there's big things and then work and all sorts of stuff. So, whatever. You're going to get a podcast when you get one.
Right.
That's just how it is. But we did have a podcast recorded.
Yes, we did.
That we recorded like in May.
It was supposed to be the summer movie preview.
The summer movie preview. We've now chosen to throw that out because
it took
it's
too
so
long.
Out of date. It took too long to edit it. There was computer crashes and
That's
all
correct.
sorts of things happened. So that podcast is now gone. This is the new number 28.
Correct.
And we're going to be tacking on the reviews
for the two movies we put at the end of that.
For the two movies.
And unfortunately, you won't get a summer movie preview, but let's face it, at this point in the
it's
summer...
it's more than halfway over.
Right. If you don't know what you want to see for the summer...
you didn't need us in the first place.
Yeah.
So...
You might have been interested in what we were going to say, but at this point, it's moot.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah. Moot.
It's invalid.
I know. That's just a funny word.
Okay.
Moot. Moot. Moot.
It's moot. It's a legal word.
It's kind of like an insult, though.
Uh-huh. It's not only invalid, it's...
Hey, you're moot.
Right, exactly.
That's what I want to
say.
It's
insultingly invalid. But yeah. Well, that's what that podcast is now.
Yeah, I had done a whole segment about the Krikorian theaters and how they have a little jingle at the beginning,
That's
and
right.
the people in the theater were clapping along to it. I thought that was great.
Mm-hmm.
It's lost now.
That's lost.
it. Just know that I talked about.
There are topics that were talked about that you don't get to hear about. It's a lost episode.
It's the lost episode.
We're beginning our mythology now.
Mm-hmm. Because it does still exist on my computer at this point, but it's unedited and full of profanity. And frankly, we try and record these things basically live.
Right.
God, that one was a mess.
That one was a mess.
We were all over the place with that. So what's been happening? Obviously lots, but what's funny that's been happening?
Not much.
Nothing, yeah.
No. Well, two things for me. One of them, at least, is I created a word out, and I want to throw it out there and see how valid you think this word is.
Oh, okay.
The word is vomitation.
Vomitation.
Mm-hmm. And it's a state that you get to. It's not a thing you do. It's you ran until you were in a state of vomitation. Okay. Or like the other day, I coughed until I was in a state of... It basically, there's no nausea involved, but you feel like suddenly, I could possibly throw up here. So it's a nausealess state. Where you could in fact vomit, like runners get sometimes. If you run too far, it's too hot and stuff like that. All of a sudden, you're just like... Ugh!
I feel like it should just be vomitous, though.
A vomitous state.
Yeah, because vomitation doesn't imply a state.
Okay, but
it's the wrong ending. But I understand the meaning.
Yeah,
it's good.
So maybe vomitous.
Vomitous. Yeah.
I'm feeling very vomitous right now.
Yeah.
Because there's no nausea involved, but I could throw up.
I could throw up though.
Yeah.
I don't know if I will. The word I created was gorillatives.
I love that word. That's what you call.
That one needs almost no explanation.
Yeah, but for the,
it's what you call a relative of a gorilla, or a relative of yours who is like a gorilla.
Correct.
Yeah.
A gorillative.
An ape-like relative.
Right, which we all have.
Right. It could be in look. It could be in behavior.
Right.
Usually, I would say it's in mannerisms.
Yes.
And behaviors.
And you know exactly who we're talking about in your family.
Is.
Yeah, and if you don't, it's you. I was watching... they had a bunch of the old adventure movies. Jason and the Argonauts.
Oh, yeah.
And it was followed by the 7 Voyages of Sinbad.
Yeah.
By the way, went on one voyage in that movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a lie.
Yeah. But
Maybe they thought it was going to be a 7-part movie series, and then they were like,
It wasn't.
It's not.
No. So what was interesting to me about it was, first of all, skeleton fights, right?
Yeah.
At the end of Jason and the Argonauts, just about the best skeleton fight ever.
Yeah, well, that's the famous skeleton
Correct.
fight.
That's the famous one that everybody remembers. But seeing it again, my love of it was reawakened. I was like, there is not enough skeleton fighting going on in movies nowadays.
Yeah.
In fact, I was watching the trailer for that new movie Hercules, which I have yet to decide if this is one big practical joke from Hollywood or not.
I think it is.
There's
There's no way that's real.
It can't be, right?
It looks like a trailer from a movie
That's making fun of...
And like, it's because The Rock is in it, like, he would actually do that.
Right.
Like, if they were making a movie that was like a funny movie, Hercules is part of the plot of this movie.
Right.
The Rock would totally be like, oh, I'll be Hercules in the funny movie within the movie.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
And I can't... But either way, there's a shot of some guys, like zombie-like guys, stepping out of the ground to fight Hercules, right?
Yeah.
Which I don't remember that being one of the trials of Hercules, but
The
whatever.
zombie fight, yeah.
But whatever. But what I was thinking was, if you're gonna have people come out of the ground, they should be the skeletons. That just like pay some homage there. Have the skeletons come back. Let's fight some skeletons. Who does not want to see that? Raise your hand.
I figured that those people were like from Hades, or because that was the whole.
I don't care. I
plot
want
line
it to
was
be
like,
skeletons.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
they could be from Hades.
They could. Skeletons could be from Hades, right?
Yeah.
And then the other just quick thing I saw was then Seven Voyages of Sinbad started. There is a single skeleton fight in that movie, not nearly as good.
Oh, he's
but
just one-on-one's a skeleton?
yeah,
Okay.
it's not nearly as, but technically that one came first.
Oh, right.
But there is an abnormal amount of people getting punched in their pants in the Seven Voyages of Sinbad.
Like in their nuts?
Yeah.
Or just like they
Well,
punch
it's
their
like
pants?
they go for it. I think it's supposed to be a stomach punch, but the way that they're
It just
faking
looks
it,
like they're
it just
nut
looks like
punching.
they're just nut punching up a storm. In fact, there is a close-up shot of a guy, and I'm not even joking. He's punching a guy, and it looks like he goes down the guy's pants, like in between cloth and flesh.
Well, they have baggy pants.
Right.
Yeah.
So it looks like he just like punched him straight down his pants. And it's like a close up. I don't know. It was just cracking me and my wife and my dad up. We were sitting there
Pants
watching
punching.
it. You're just a bunch of pants punching. Then they gave you a close up of punching down someone's pants. And I'm like, that is insulting. That is dirty
That's
fighting.
the worst kind of pants punching.
Yeah. That is dirty fighting.
Yeah.
I'm usually not a person who thinks there is such a thing as dirty fighting. You do what you got to do to win. But you don't punch down people's pants.
Yeah.
Now, granted, it's much harder with jeans nowadays.
Yeah.
But still, don't go around punching people down their pants, children.
Yeah, you almost have to have some baggy pants to punch down.
Right. So really,
Most people's pants that they wear today, you're not going to be able to get your hand.
well,
in there.
especially nowadays with all the skinny jeans and everything like
Yeah,
that.
there's no way you can get your hand down there.
No, but so like the late '90s, the early '90s,
Yeah.
I guess,
Like
was
MC
the last
Hammer probably was real worried about that.
if I were him, I would have been.
And oddly enough, Sinbad, the comedian.
Yes.
Ironically, an ironic turn, he was one of the people most vulnerable
Right.
to being punched down his pants.
Yes. I think the only person you should really be worried about it, and so I send this out to you today, is if you play Aladdin in the theme parks.
Oh, yeah.
You should be concerned because you don't want people seeing this movie. They'll get ideas.
Yeah.
And they will punch you down your pants.
Luckily, that movie's not in high circulation
Right.
anymore these days.
But still,
That's funny.
it's a concern. And I just had never thought to do that to somebody.
No, I wouldn't. Like, how do you do it with one hand?
Watch the Seven Voyages of Sinbad, and you'll see how it's
assuming
done.
you had to like pull their pants out and then punch down.
You would think so, but
Yeah.
this guy, there was enough belly
There's enough
flab.
air there.
There was enough belly flab, and the thing was loose enough that he was able to
The guy
like.
was moving backwards and had left a momentary gap.
He punched right down there, like kind of pushing some belly out of the way,
Oh, okay. I
leaving
see.
a gap,
I see.
and then just went right. Just
Right. Because it was probably like no elastic. It was probably
Right.
tied on with like a
well,
rope.
right. Sinbad was punching everybody in the pants, and needless to say, people were just he'd punch them and they'd go down for good.
Yeah.
Because he was just, I guess he figured out that if you just go around socking balls, then fight's over.
Yeah.
Which I would wager is actually probably true.
Yeah. Probably.
I know if somebody punched me in the balls, I'd be down.
Yeah, I'd be down.
Yeah.
Um.
And I might be vomitous.
Yeah. I would be vomitous after
Yeah.
that. Sometimes, yeah, you get hit in the nuts and you're just laying there like, oh god.
I might actually throw up
There's
here.
nothing right, but throwing up is one of the things that feels right. That's good. All right, so podcast news, not a whole lot. It's just stay with us.
Just stay with us.
Just keep it, we don't expect you to be the only podcast you listen to. Listen to all your other podcasts, and then it'll be like, oh, look,
I got one of these.
I got a little blue dot by my fill in the blank one. That means there's a new one there.
Right. I'm gonna
That's
listen
great.
to that.
I want to listen to that. So, tell your friends. Continue to do that. And if you haven't liked us on Facebook,
Do it.
please do so at facebook.com/.
There's tons of content to see there.
FITB Podcast. No, that's been lacking too.
I know.
It's funny. It's just like when you're doing a thing on the side, it's totally, how bored you are. It's like the podcast gets as much attention as we are bored.
Kind
like
of.
if I don't have anything else to do, then I'm like,
I
I
hate to
should
say it like that. But
No, it's true
you're
though.
right.
You're like,
Yeah.
I don't have work today. I should do some stuff on the Facebook, or I should
Right.
I should work on something for the next podcast.
Yeah.
And then it's like, I had work all the time.
So
Not gonna
do it.
Didn't even think about the podcast.
Right. Did not even enter my stream of consciousness.
Until you get to a point like this where you're like, it's been 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
We both have work all the time, but it doesn't matter.
We
got to do it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what's the point?
Well, I remember sometimes, like, as I'm laying down to go to sleep, I'm like, oh my God,
that podcast exists.
we haven't even done one of those in a while.
No, I know.
And then you start thinking about, like,
and you feel bad about it.
yeah.
Yeah.
But we're back.
Don't think we don't feel bad, because we do.
We missed you.
Yeah, we feel bad.
We do.
All right, well, let's just jump right to our topic.
Let's do it.
Boy, we got your topic today. Topic today to tell you.
All right.
Your topic of the day.
Our topic of the day.
Our topic of the day.
Tell us what it is.
It's villains.
Yeah, we're going to do
Villains.
a brief
discussion
discussion on villains.
the importance of villains in storytelling,
Yeah.
specifically for movies,
Yeah.
and then narrowing it down even further, specifically
Yeah.
for
'Cause
children's movies.
That's where you came up with this topic.
Correct.
Was specifically having a different conversation about children's movies.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Which we'll talk about that. But let's just start off just a little bit talking about villains.
Yeah.
Why? Who needs them?
Everyone.
Everyone needs them. Because I don't know about you, but I'm a strong believer in the idea that your hero is only as good as his villain.
Well, the thing that I've noticed, especially more recently, is that the villains actually tend to be the more interesting characters.
Right.
Because your hero is playing it straight, or just being the standard person's point of, like they're playing a
Right.
kind of a I don't want to say boring, but it's
Kind of boring.
kind of a boring point of view that they portray.
It doesn't have to be that way, but
It doesn't have to be, but lately,
it does seem that way. Yes.
and the villains are where the fun is.
Right. Well, it seems to me that lately you either get a boring hero with a really interesting villain,
Yeah.
which that will work because
Yeah.
a hero's like if they take down the villain that you thought was an awesome villain, then the hero
and the
seems
hero becomes awesome.
correct.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and we'll talk a little bit more about this when we
Yeah.
get to our review
Yeah.
of Transformers.
Yes.
Also, what I see, if it's not that lately, what I see is we focus all of our time on how awesome our hero is without any
Bad guy.
like either multiple bad guys, none of which are interesting,
Yeah.
or one bad guy who we're not going to spend any time with, so it's just he just shows up to be punched.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem that I have with like the Spider-Man movies. Like,
Yeah.
all 5 of them.
Yes,
Is I'm just like, why do I care?
right. The
The villains are dumb.
right. The villains are dumb. And I guess that's what brought me to this topic in part
Yeah.
today, was just because if you have a dumb villain,
Yeah.
don't even make the movie.
Just don't start. Just fix that.
Right. Now, you should have a really interesting villain, and then you work on making your hero interesting on top of that,
Yeah.
because it is possible to do.
Yeah.
But if you don't have a good villain, you don't have a story.
Well, like, see, my example of like what you were saying, where like if you have sometimes you have a good villain and a whatever fair to midland hero, but then by defeating the villain,
he
becomes awesome. I feel like the Matrix is a good example of that.
I think The Matrix is an excellent example of that.
Because Agent Smith is a great villain.
He's a
who's
fantastic
got
villain.
interesting things going on. He wants to escape, and like he doesn't
Right.
want to be where he doesn't want to do his
And
job.
really,
and
the hero,
stuff.
because Morpheus is interesting, but
Yeah.
Neo is
Not.
just a cardboard
But then
cutout.
he defeats him, and you're like, Neo's awesome.
Correct.
So that's what's there's other interesting characters in the movie. I'm not
No,
like,
yeah,
as
yeah,
far
yeah,
as the
yeah.
main hero and the main villain.
Right.
But then you also have you kind of have the other kind that works as well, which is I have a hero that's good and interesting, and I have a villain who I don't know much about but is terrifying,
Well, right, exactly, and
which would be more like your Darth Vader type.
correct.
Well,
And the
we don't-
less you know about
That
them,
makes them better.
the better
They're
the more
scarier.
terrifying
Right.
they are.
Yeah.
And I would say even the Joker falls under that
The
category.
Joker's kind of like that,
because you have no idea where this guy came from.
or what he's going to do.
Right.
Or, yeah.
He's just a guy who shows up and says, I mean, now there's an interesting villain.
Yeah.
Who's also mysterious and therefore terrifying.
And another example would be, and not from the movie that came out this year, but the Maleficent from the original Disney Beauty and the Beast animated cartoon.
Yes.
You don't even know why she's there or what she's like.
terrifying.
They don't tell you in that story.
No, but,
much of the backstory there.
But the dragon,
she's
when she
scary.
turns into a dragon and starts
She's
snapping
evil.
at people. It's terrifying. Obviously, a classic example is the Wicked Witch.
Yeah.
We'll get to that in just a second. I would say a great example of a very interesting hero where you just don't kind of give a damn anymore because the villain is either non-existent or boring. Look at any of the Iron Man movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that's the biggest problem with any of the Iron Man movies.
They have the Spider-Man problem too, where except Iron Man's much more interesting than Spider-Man just because the actor and the way they portray that role is written for him.
And that to me is a shame because if you have Robert Downey Jr. being that interesting, which he is, you need to really work to give him something.
I mean, it's really been a problem with almost all of those, with the exception of Thor and maybe the first Captain America movie. That's been a problem with all the Marvel movies. The Avengers doesn't have a strong villain in my mind, other than it's Loki. But then they have the weird space aliens come through a portal. And I don't care about them. It's just
Loki's
for you guys to
interesting.
Beat up. But Loki's good in the first.
See, but this is a great example of too many bad guys, so not enough focus on any one.
Right.
And I feel like that's a big problem in movies nowadays. Is
they want to keep adding more and more bad guys. And
it's like, no, give me one good one.
Well, and you would have thought, like, after seeing The Dark Knight, that they would have been like, oh, yeah, that's right. We can do that because Christopher Nolan's put basically one major bad guy.
Right.
He's had kind of the racial.
He's had a secondary bad guy, but and technically Two-Face is in The Dark Knight.
Yeah, but he doesn't play a villain role.
Right, and even then, if you're going to call him a villain, he doesn't show up till the end.
He shows up 5
and
minutes
it's
before
really
the
all
end.
about the ramifications of what the Joker has done. It's not.
And even the Tim Burton Batman, it's just the
Joker. Yeah.
If we're
things started going wrong
books,
when they started adding all the
multiple bad guys is not necessary, but I feel like they don't feel good enough. I mean, all the Superman movies are just Lex Luthor.
Right. Exactly. And I guess that's my point is more than one bad guy, you start diffusing the power of the villain. And the villain is what creates, like we've already said, the hero. Now, I don't think that this has ever been more important than in children's stories. Now, this is how this topic got started in the first place, was I was having a conversation with somebody because they were saying that the villain in this book, I'm not going to name any names, there's no reason to, but they're saying the villain in this book, the Graveyard Book, was too scary for 5th graders because he shows up with a knife and stabs a bunch of people. Now, my argument against that is not that I think, who cares if 5th graders sees a bunch of stabbings? No, that's terrible. It should be terrible no matter what age you are, though. And I think it's actually more important in some respects, especially when dealing with the straight-up wicked bad guys. Yeah. The Darth Vaders, the Jokers, the Wicked Witch of the West, the Maleficent, people like that. Yeah. I would say it's even more important to give kids those truly black and white villains, but make them scary. You can't find a Disney movie where they don't have really a good one where the villain is not terrifying. Yeah. This is true of a lot of great children's stories. Mm-hmm. And I think the reason for this is because, think about it like this. When you were a little kid, your imagination was the scariest thing about you. Like late at night, there were monsters in the closet, there were boogeymen under the bed, there were demons in the windows, or whatever. That's when your imagination goes crazy, which is why you need to give kids these super scary bad guys and then show the heroes defeating them. So the kids have a frame of reference of, look, there's the thing that was in my bad dream. Mm-hmm. And look, goodness overcame it. You see what I'm saying? It helps you deal with the concept of the scary things that you're going to think of regardless of whether you see these movies or not. You're going to have bad dreams about witches or whatever, regardless of whether you see the movies. Not only that, but it also gives you, the parent, the vocabulary to deal with it, it would seem, to me. Yeah. In that, like, oh, I had a bad dream about a witch. Well, you remember what happened with the witch, right?
Just ammunition.
Right. So when you go back to sleep, think about yourself with a super soaker. So if the witch tries to come back at you, you can just wet her down and melt her. You know, whatever it may be, it gives you some frame of reference to talk about it. Kids can deal with the scary villains. It's going to give them bad dreams, sure. But it gives them a frame of reference to start coping with the scary things that they're going to think of either way.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying introduce them to Hans Landa or introduce them to Ray Fiennes from Schindler's List.
Yeah.
Like, that's a gray villain. He's a straight up bad guy.
Yeah.
But it's harder to explain to kids.
Yeah.
It's not like Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Darth Vader you should give to a kid when they're small. And as they grow up, that you can turn that understanding of Darth Vader into an understanding of Ray Fiennes and Schindler's List. It just begins that process.
Uh-huh.
You kind of get my point on that?
Uh-huh.
You know, what are your thoughts? What do you
Well,
think?
you started off by mentioning a book.
Yes, the Graveyard Book.
And I find that it's more acceptable, and I think rightfully so in our society, for you to read something scary than to see something scary for children.
Just because it makes it more real to see it, you're saying?
Because children can't necessarily separate sometimes
Sure,
what
sure.
they're seeing on TV from reality, whereas if you're reading it to
Although
them...
some of the scariest things I've ever encountered were things that I read because my imagination was able to fill in the gaps.
Right, but I'm just saying that's just true. We can read.
Oh,
kids,
sure,
you
sure,
can
sure.
read. I mean, you can. I don't find that book to be to a fifth grader to read that book.
Right,
If it's at fifth grade reading level,
right.
read the book.
It's technically slated at a fourth grade reading level, but
well, then why can't they read it?
Right.
So,
I agree with that. But
you read a lot worse things than you ever see.
yes, probably for that very reason that you just said.
You'll never see as bad because movie makers will always they'll always take the book's way out in the end.
Right.
You may have read in the book that this person they'll describe exactly how he stabbed a bunch of people. They will never show it like that.
Right.
In a movie.
Right.
They'll cut away when he comes into the room with a knife.
Right.
And then there'll be a bunch of dead bodies. Like
Right.
they won't, and then you fill in the rest with your imagination.
Right, which is also terrifying. I guess my point was that if you take someone like the Wicked Witch of the West,
Yeah.
I don't care how old you are, she's terrifying.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If you really think about the concept of meeting that person, which is how kids take this stuff.
Yeah.
They take it as it's up on the screen. Like you said, I'm seeing it. That might as well be a real thing that's happening right now.
Yeah.
That's terrifying. Are you going to tell me that now little kids shouldn't watch The Wizard of Oz because the Wicked Witch is terrifying?
Yeah.
No. I think it's more important for them to watch it so that you can say, yep, that was terrifying. And the little kid, Dorothy, won in the end, even though it was Judy Garland and she was like 27.
Even though it wasn't a little kid.
Right.
And she had a lovely dog, so
Uh-huh.
I don't know what good that was. That probably hampered her progress.
It got her in trouble, all the trouble in the first place, just so you know.
Right, I know. If she had had a big dog, that wouldn't have happened.
Right, exactly.
And then maybe she could have ridden it somewhere, too, once they got to Oz. Or Munchkins could have ridden it, at least.
Somebody, right. The Scarecrow could have ridden it. He's light.
Yeah, he doesn't weigh anything.
Yeah.
He could have ridden the dog.
Mm-hmm.
If Toto was just a bull mastiff, that'd be awesome.
It would definitely change the story.
Mm-hmm.
In very interesting ways.
Yeah, they'd never be surprised.
No.
Right, in like the woods. Like the trees wouldn't surprise them because the dog would have been barking.
Oh, the trees are alive.
the dog doesn't like these trees.
Right.
Very good.
So either way, that's what I'm that's what I'm thinking about is
Throwing that out there.
Yeah, scare the crap out of your kids. They
You're
can
saying to scare the kids.
Yeah, they can deal with it.
That's good. All right, so we've got a couple movie reviews to do now, including our older reviews,
which will
to add on to the end.
Right.
So let's do a movie report.
This is movie review. See?
A plus.
That's it.
That's it. That's
It's
all
just
there
that
is.
quick.
Yeah.
It's just that quick.
Let's get to it.
All right, I'll go first.
Okay.
I saw, and I'll start back in time. The oldest movie first, I think, is the one I saw, actually, anyways. I saw Edge of Tomorrow about
I
a
did
month
not see
ago.
that one. I did not see that one.
I know you had multiple Tom Cruise issues.
Yes. And although part of the fun of it was going to be seeing Tom Cruise die all the time, the downside was that he's going to keep coming back.
Yeah. Okay, I liked this movie. I
I've
thought
heard
this
good
movie
things.
was
I've heard
much
good things.
better than any of the marketing portrayed it.
Okay.
This was kind of a little bit of a it was mostly an action movie, let's be honest, but it was a little bit of a thinker.
Okay.
And you had Emily Blunt. I don't know how much I bought her as like a soldier because she's like the skinniest human being on the
Right.
planet. Like, I'm like, you don't have muscles though.
Right.
How can you? But so we'll keep it brief. But story, I gave it a B because this is where it looked like it was a D in the trailer.
It did.
It looked like, I know how this movie goes.
Okay.
It doesn't go that way. It goes a different way, and that way is that there's a nice twist at the ending, and it's not expected, and it takes a turn. Now, the very ending, I did not like. I'm talking about like the last 45 seconds. I was like, oh God, why didn't you just end it 45 seconds ago? It was one of those. And so this is a a time bending movie because he keeps going back in time and reliving the same moment. So you run into those issues that you always run into with a time travel type thing, and they explain it really well without just setting. There's one scene where they're just like, here's some exposition to explain everything, but it's fine. It's brief, and they do it well, and you're like, okay, I understand. I want to now, because it's like setting up the mission. It's like, here's how it all works. We've got to get rid of this, and then that solves all the problems. And you're like, great, cool.
Let's do that.
And so there's some twists in the way and how that happens that are interesting that you don't see coming, which is good because that means it's an intelligent person's
right
writing it. But the very ending, they do one more scene, and you're like, now I have a million questions. Had you just ended the movie, I was like, yeah, everything you told me about this world made sense the way it ended. I understand. This is what happened. And then they added on that scene, and I'm like, hold on a second. Now I got to raise my hand and ask all sorts of questions about the time travel because you screwed it up by adding this scene. And it seems like a scene that the studio or Tom Cruise himself asked for. Because, spoiler alert, the ending I wanted was him dead for good.
Right.
And that's not the very end of the movie. Spoiler alert, it's been out for a while, so I don't care.
Right.
He comes back, and I'm like, wait a minute, you just broke all the rules that you established with time travel. So, like...
You know the studio did that so they could have a happy ending.
Or Tom Cruise was like, I don't die in movies.
Was he running in this extra last scene?
No, he didn't run. No, so that was the nice thing. So I gave the characters a B.
Okay.
Because Emily Blunt was good. She played tough. I bought it. There was lots of funny little...
Kind of.
Yeah. She didn't look tough, but... She's a good enough actress. Mm-hmm. There was lots of other side actors. Bill Paxton was cracking me up in this as a drill sergeant. Oh, God. He was playing a drill sergeant, and he was being funny on purpose, and he knew it.
Wow.
I know. You just hate everything about this movie because of all these people.
I don't hate Emily Blunt. I do hate Bill Paxton.
I like him. There was all these other things.
Really
Anyways,
hate Bill Paxton.
Tom Cruise played against type, which was appreciated. He plays a coward in this movie.
Okay, so he's playing.
He's like, I don't want to go fight.
Right.
I don't want to do this. This is dumb.
Okay.
And the love story actually works pretty well because of the way they build it. You know it's coming a long ways away, but they sell it pretty good. Okay. And she's upset about it because, of course, he keeps reliving the same day, but nobody else knows that. He's the only one who remembers reliving it.
Oh, okay. So
like he falls in love with her by reliving the same day so many times and having that built up memories.
Oh, right.
And every day for her, he has to explain to her everything that they did.
Ah.
And
right, so you have Groundhog Day thing going on.
Yeah. So it's quite good. The effects, technical, I gave it an A-. The enemies were a lot kind of like, they reminded me of like the Matrix-y, those squid things in the Matrix.
Oh, okay.
Except they weren't mechanical, they were biological in this.
Okay, but nothing
groundbreaking?
Thank you.
No, very good effects.
But I mean, in terms of design, the style.
No, interesting, but not like, oh, that's really cool. And then the only downside to some of the effects was like they're in these weird mech suits, and sometimes you're like, that's a CGI Tom Cruise head.
Okay.
And then music I gave a C because I can't remember a single note of it.
Gotcha.
But it didn't bother me.
Gotcha.
So I gave this movie a B overall.
Okay, so...
I would say see it just because there's just not that many original sci-fi movies.
Sure.
And this one actually has something interesting to say and some nice little twists.
Okay, so Edge of Tomorrow, not
I feel like it's just going to get lost in the summer, but much better than any of the marketing would have you believe.
That's what I say. Final consensus is Edge of Tomorrow not at all served by its marketing.
No, pretty good movie, actually.
Okay.
Recommend seeing it at some point. I don't know. It's good effects, so if you can see it, maybe you can see it at the $2 theater since it's been out for 2 months or something.
Right.
Worthwhile.
Okay.
What'd you see?
I saw the movie Chef.
Okay. That's the...
with Jon Favreau.
With Jon Favreau, yeah.
And John Leguizamo and...
Yeah.
Like a million people secretly.
I know some other people who saw that.
I thought it was good.
Yeah?
Yeah. Story, I gave story of that one a B+. Nothing that it's like you've never seen before in terms of storylines. It just, but, basically you're dealing with a story of a guy, a chef at a restaurant who keeps trying to push the envelope of what the restaurant serves and what he can do there, express himself more through the food, you know what I'm saying? And the owner's like, no. See, the reason people come here is for the stuff that you've always been cooking. Don't try anything new. So then he has to, kind of break out of that mold, and he ends up starting a food truck and all sorts of stuff like that.
Okay. See, now that's one of those plots where, like, I better really like these characters, otherwise I'm going to be like, who cares?
Yeah.
You know? Like,
right.
when you describe that plot to me, my instant reaction is, I don't care.
Right.
I don't care if this chef has a problem. Why do I need to hear this story,
I know,
right?
but you don't like normal people.
The characters better be very good.
And the characters were very good. Okay. The reason I gave the story a B+ was because it was an interesting story. It kind of went a few places that I was like, oh, okay, we're going to do that now.
Yeah.
I thought the ending was a little bit too easily wrapped up.
Okay.
Into a nice little bow.
Uh-huh.
But, I don't know, it was such a sweet movie that you were like, okay, that's fine. Like, it didn't bother you that it was kind of wrapped up a little easy. You were just like, well, that's where I wanted it to end up, so that's fine.
Yeah.
The characters I gave an A, and it's just because you can tell that all of the people in this movie. I mean, I love John Leguizamo. I like
him. I really don't like Jon Favreau.
I know you don't, but he was really good in this movie, and it's because he wasn't playing some character. He was just being funny, interacting with the boy.
I feel like I do like him better as an actor than a director, though.
Right. And their little boy was very good, and and that's like the main trio: is John Leguizamo, Jon Favreau, and this little boy.
Okay.
That's like the main trio of the movie.
Yeah.
You have Sofia Vergara in a few scenes and stuff. I know you don't like her. I do. I think she can be very funny. And actually, she is not playing that typical Sofia Vergara. I'm really loud, and that's supposed to be funny.
Yeah.
Like, she wasn't doing that at all in this movie. She was actually allowed to just be like a normal human being.
Oh, okay.
So, I think even you could handle her in this movie.
Yeah.
And then you have surprise appearances by, Scarlett Johansson's in this, Dustin Hoffman's in this.
Yeah, I heard there's a bunch of random
right.
cameos.
What's his face? Robert Downey Jr.'s in this. There's just a bunch of people who show up, and they only do one scene.
And they're just like at the restaurant, one scene.
Right.
Something.
Yeah. Oliver Platt is the reviewer who gets into.
Platt.
Yeah, exactly. And all these people just show up. They only have a few, or sometimes in some cases, just one little scene.
Yeah.
But that one scene is awesome.
Yeah.
So you just keep getting these little awesome scenes, and then you really grow to care about this trio of
okay.
And
I feel like John Leguizamo was pretty underrated and underused.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's very good.
I agree with you on that one. Tech, I gave a B because it was a well-shot film.
It's like an indie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there was nothing, it's just a movie.
Yeah.
Music, I gave an A because the soundtrack to this movie is kind of a big part of it. There's a lot of salsa music and a lot of...
Okay.
It's like kind of setting the tone. You know how indie movies do that with their music. So I gave it an A-.
Okay.
Because it's a solid movie. It's what I think there should probably be about 40 of these a year and only like 3 Transformers. And instead, there's like 40 Transformers and 2 of these a year.
Yes, that's true.
So it's just a movie. You're going to go there. You're going to get a story with some characters that you like. And it's going to be well done.
Yeah.
And like I said, the reason it gets an A- instead of just an A is just because the ending did wrap up just a little too neatly and easily.
Right.
But you were having so much fun
what
that
you gonna do?
Yeah, you don't care. So yeah, go see Chef.
Okay.
And this is definitely one you can wait till it comes on TV.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's what I'll do,
it's
probably.
not like anything that's...
It's not like some big screen experience.
No, but
it's a small film.
Yeah, but you're just gonna watch it. You're gonna enjoy it for the time.
Right.
It's not gonna change your life, but you're gonna be like, okay.
All right,
I actually got to know some people in a movie, which is
more
rare.
That's true.
Moving on, let that be our segue
into Transformers: Age of Extinction of characters.
Yes.
No, the first Transformer was the Age of Extinction for characters.
Yes. This is just the.
See, this is yet another Transformers film that I'm like, so many glaring problems with this.
There's tons,
and I still enjoyed the hell out of it.
Well. Yeah, we'll talk about it. What'd you put down for story in Transformers?
I gave it a C.
You gave it a C.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I was like,
let me just quickly encapsulate the story for our audience.
Yes, do that. I was about to do that. You do that.
The story is: did you see Transformers 3? That's what it is. No, but I mean, Optimus Prime and his people are all on the run because. After saving the world, the government has decided that we don't want them around anymore.
As it does,
I guess.
Yeah.
And
it was only in fairness. Even the president was like, "Where's Optimus Prime? Why didn't he show up at my thing?" It's only because of that Kelsey Grammer and the CIA Black Squad.
That's true.
That they're just decided we have
Cemetery
to eliminate
Wind.
Cemetery Wind.
Because Death Blow, I guess, was
I
taken.
don't know what Cemetery Wind. That was weird. I was like, there's just...
Cemetery Wind falls in the category of many things about this movie that, while I guess you could do that.
Why?
Why did you do
Why'd
that?
you call it that?
So that's the first one of those.
Yeah.
And right. And to be fair, actually, I know I was just kind of making fun of the fact that it's like they just saved the world. Why are you going after them? To be fair,
they destroyed a
they
city.
destroyed the like stuff all over this movie.
Yeah.
Like as soon as any Transformers show up, things go bad.
That's
so
true.
Kind
so
of,
you can understand.
You're kind of like, well, Kelsey Grammer's not wrong.
Yeah, you can understand
this
why
has
they
got to
want...
stop.
You've got to get out of here. You keep ruining everything. Destroying cities and killing innocent civilians.
And okay, I gave the story a D+.
Okay.
Because they did enough story in the beginning.
Yeah. That
I was like, wait a minute, are we gonna have a story here?
Yeah.
And then they were like, about 45 minutes in, they're like, kidding.
Well, they had the guy. They had the hunter robot.
Yeah. This is another way too many bad guys. This is
why I gave it a C, because they had the hunter robot who was like, I'm going to get...
Who was one bad guy.
He's got to go get the primes. He's hunting the primes. So he's trying to get Optimus.
Is that what he was doing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because Optimus Prime was one of those guys with swords.
Right. Those were the knights.
He's one of them. That was what I understood.
He's one of them, which we found out when he pulled the sword out and started fighting with it.
Well, we knew he was hunted. I figured it out earlier because he was like,
I'm being hunted, right?
Trying to get. I only care about getting Optimus
Prime, right?
I'm helping the Cemetery Wind hunt the other Transformers,
right? Because
so
some mysterious faction in outer space wants Optimus Prime. They did not tell you.
We don't know who that is.
Right?
It's like the Elder somebody's or something who decided he needs to be eliminated. He's no longer useful,
or whatever, or he's not doing what he was built to do.
Yeah,
or something.
And then there's the government.
With Kelsey Grammer,
with
who's
Kelsey
a bad
Grammer.
guy,
I liked him. And then there's the other.
That was the most interesting part of the whole
And then
thing.
there's the plot line with Stanley Tucci where they're making their own Transformers.
And he rebuilds Megatron into Galvatron.
Yeah.
So
it's a little bit convoluted. I didn't find it hard to follow, but that being said, it's nothing. There's
nothing. And as soon as it ceased to serve them, they ditched every part of the story.
Absolutely, as they make you.
I'll tell you, the one character you care about the most in this entire movie. Yeah. There's a dinosaur in the first minute and a half of this movie. Oh God,
I felt so bad for that little dinosaur.
Love. And they keep showing you clips of him, so you're like, oh, I see. That dinosaur is going to end up getting transformerized.
I think he is.
Into Grimlock.
He did, but they never really explicitly did it.
That's my point, though. That's my point, is that you and I both, there's a lot of things that you and I are getting from the story that they didn't really tell you. You were just like, I'm pretty sure that's what they wanted me to think.
That little dinosaur was so nice. I wanted to be his friend.
I wanted one.
Yeah.
Right. No, I'm pretty sure.
That's the most emotion in the whole movie is in the first minute
and a half.
Yeah.
Yes. Little dinosaur.
But it's good.
So I gave the story D+.
Okay. I gave it a C because I understood it. It's kind of a throwaway it's just to get you to action.
Yeah, but see, that's...
You have a problem with that.
I have a problem with that, and
I have a problem with it, but I've given up.
I have a problem with it, and the reason it gets a D in the D category, D+, is because they had thread, and this is how I've been feeling about all the Transformers. You set up these threads, so I can see that you are trying to tell me a story here.
Yeah.
And then as soon as it finish it off, and you just kind of halfway through the movie just decide, let's blow some stuff up.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, I blame.
And then they just add Optimus Prime doing voiceover to somehow bring it back around at the end.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty much how it works.
That's what they do.
And you know what I think these movies are a big have a big problem with?
Yeah,
is the fact that Michael Bay does not shoot everything in the movie. I think as soon as they greenlight Transformers, they send a unit out to just get shots of cars driving around.
Yeah.
And then somehow that needs to work in the movie because we already shot it. That's what it feels like to me a lot of times.
Interesting. What'd you give the characters?
Characters got a straight up D.
Yeah, I got a straight up D on that. Mark Wahlberg was being Mark Wahlberg.
Mark Wahlberg and Stanley Tucci saved them.
Yes.
The characters almost got an F.
Yeah, but Stanley Tucci really is who saved. Well, Mark Wahlberg was being Mark Wahlberg.
Right.
Which I like, so I'm fine with it.
But we understand you may not like Mark Wahlberg.
You may not like that, then you're not.
But if you need to know what Mark Wahlberg's doing in this movie, just watch the trailer when he goes, I think we got a Transformer here.
Yeah, that's what he does.
That's him just the whole movie.
Yeah. Tucci
and at one point he punches dirt in slow motion.
Yeah, he does do that. The best is when he's just screaming for his life, though, in the slow motion in the car.
That is
Him
the
and
best
Stanley
shot.
Tucci just screaming for their life in a super slow-mo shot.
Yeah.
It's the best thing.
It really is.
I actually like Kelsey Grammer as a bad guy.
Yeah, he was.
He didn't know why he was saying what he was saying, but he
said
did it with
convincing.
conviction.
Yeah, he
so
did.
he was fine.
Yeah, it worked.
Tucci was the best part of this movie.
Tucci
though.
was the best part of the movie.
And Optimus Prime.
Well, Optimus Prime, at least I'll say this about the movie,
Yeah.
is the fact that they understood that I wanted more of Optimus Prime
Yeah.
in the previous movies, which I did not get.
Yeah.
And they were just like, well, Optimus Prime's the main character.
He's
in
the
this
main
movie.
character of this. But the reason it almost got an F is because of that girl and the boyfriend.
Yes, and the other Transformers, and
everybody else.
yeah, everybody.
Anyone else who talked.
Yeah,
Other than Kelsey
Other
Grammer,
than-
Stanley Tucci, Mark Wahlberg, and Optimus Prime,
correct.
anyone else who talked was horrible.
Yes.
Especially his daughter and
Oh
the
my
boyfriend.
God.
Like they didn't need to be in the movie.
No,
When the movie ends, you're like, they served zero. They did
Yeah,
nothing
they
to
did
this movie
nothing.
other than me looking at her. But I don't know, she had a weird face to me
and
because you know that she was in there just to be the hot girl.
I
was
find
like,
that
this
offensive
is-
to think
yeah.
that as a guy I'm supposed to just be okay with sexism because she's hot. Like
That's-
I don't care. Like
that's what
I don't
it-
go for
that's
that.
the reason
it
for her
makes
being
me
there,
like
though.
your movie less. Yes,
Yes, it does.
But it makes me like your movie less when you're just not even trying to hide the fact that you're making a hot car, hot girl calendar the movie.
Well, I mean, my thing is like this. Like, okay, whatever you want to say about the other Transformers movies, the two eye candies in those actually had something to do. At least it wasn't.
A little
it
bit.
wasn't much.
It wasn't
like, they
much,
were
but
still
it was
there
more
to be,
than this one.
But this one literally was just there to look at and be annoying.
Yeah.
When-
And same thing with the guy, because I will say this: they
Yeah, the
finally
guy,
gave the
too.
girls
He was
eye
the,
candy.
He was the man candy.
he was man candy, but just as
He was
useless.
completely useless.
So, and both of them could have gone. And what upset me is that there's even a point about halfway through the movie
Where you could have
where
actually
they
had
could have
them
dumped
gone.
them,
Yeah.
and they were like, Mark Wahlberg was like, I gotta go with Optimus Prime.
Yeah. You can't come with
You
me.
can't come with me. And she's like, I'm going with you. And
Yeah.
and he's like, okay. And
Yeah.
then they went, and they did nothing.
Yeah.
Like, why would you do that? And they actually had the girl say, "We'll be safer with the Transformers."
Yeah. And you're
Are
like,
you kidding me?
Have you seen any
Have you
trans?
seen
any
the first half of this movie?
movie?
Nobody's safer with the Transformers.
I will say that Michael Bay did do an awesome explosion in the first.
Yes, he
at
did.
the beginning.
But I mean, that's what he does.
no, but it was one of those like that Armageddon explosion.
Yeah.
Like where everything stopped and you were just like, I'm just gonna stare at this explosion. Like that's what these movies are for.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you can handle that, then you can enjoy them. And I guess I can handle that. I
Right.
don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But I gave the technical an A++.
I gave the technical
Because
an
once again, I guarantee you this will be the best special effects of the year, and it will not be nominated because it's Transformers.
Correct. And
Every time a Transformers movie
although
comes out,
I would argue that the movie I'm most looking forward to will be a rival for the special effects.
the apes,
Yes.
they'll give it to the apes because there's apes.
And because of the way because they're shooting that now, that motion capture stuff like outdoors with no studio work whatsoever.
I know, but they
location.
always give it to biological things, which is a shame.
Well,
I get that technology is emergent and it deserves it from time to time,
Right.
but not every time.
I understand that. And I don't know that. I don't know. I haven't seen Apes yet. I'm super excited for
Well,
it.
you've also got The Hobbit too to contend with on
Right,
effects,
but they're not
which is
gonna give
be
it to-
the same studio.
Yeah, but they're not going to give it to The Hobbit.
Why not? What if the dragon does something cool?
Well, the Dragon has been doing cool things, and they won't give it to them.
That's true.
Okay. I think it's possible that this year I'll feel like the Apes deserve it.
I think that. Well,
But
I think the apes will look
the
good.
problem is that every other year that Transformers was
Yeah.
nominated, they did deserve it.
I know.
Like,
yeah.
yeah. So
Anyways, it
I don't
won't,
know that
but
this
that's
is
fine.
the year for the Transformers, but they
It's
have
still
deserved
it's Michael Bay, and if you think his movies don't deserve A pluses on technical merits, then I don't care what you have to say. You're wrong. You're wrong.
They do
I'm
look
sorry.
good. My only complaint with Michael Bay as a filmmaker in
Yeah.
terms of making the look of his movies
Yeah.
is that he does not distinguish an important line from an unimportant line. He will shoot it just as epically either way.
Well, yeah, yeah. That's more of a directorial issue than
Yes.
it is a technical
Correct,
issue. Because
correct.
they're all technically like perfect.
Correct. No, and technically,
Yeah.
he has the best. The reason his shots are the best is because they're the most complex and well thought out. Like,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
care
Oh,
whether
yeah.
you know, in terms of creating parallax and stuff like that
Yeah.
in his shots.
Yeah.
There's nobody better.
Yeah.
So that's why his movies always look amazing.
Yeah, and if you think J.J. Abrams not trying to look like Michael Bay all the time,
Well, J.J. Abrams
get a
said
new
he
opinion.
learned
Yeah.
by working for Michael Bay, which he did.
and
then
then
music-
music.
I gave the music a B.
I gave it an A- because it was more of what I like.
I gave it a B, and the reason is because a lot of it was the more of just Jablonski doing heroic,
Yeah.
just thundering at
Yeah.
your music, which I'm actually okay with.
I'm okay with it because there's not enough of it these days.
Okay, fair enough.
It's nothing original, though. He didn't do anything new with it.
He didn't do it. Well, the one thing he did do that was new about it snapped me out of the movie every single time it happened.
Oh, what was that?
And there was like a theme that they used repeatedly for Mark Wahlberg thinking about his daughter at sunset.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just, and every time it'd be like a guitar.
The guitar,
and,
yeah.
And then the woman come in. Ooh,
Yes, there was the woman singing.
And
That's
every
true.
single time the woman came
We're
on the
like,
stage, I was like, "What
Whoa,
is this?
What the heck?
What is this?"
That's
It
funny.
was. I'm usually okay because it was a little cheesy.
Yeah.
And I usually love that. It was too far.
Yeah.
Like
It was a little bit too much.
so that's why it
You're
got
right.
a B for me.
Now I remember that. But you know what? It's going to sound good on a soundtrack.
I heard it on the soundtrack.
You're going to like it on the soundtrack.
I didn't.
Oh, because you saw the movie first.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
Maybe so.
Well, it wasn't. Yeah, if it had been used if it had been used for that little dinosaur dying, you would have liked it better.
Oh, I would have loved it.
Because it could have been used.
It could have been used for that.
All right, so I gave it overall. I guess I'm giving it like a B-, although it kind of pains me to give it a B. But I just see it's like, well, those scores you gave it a C, D, and 2 A's, and I don't necessarily think that the technical and music A's should equal the value
Of the
of
story,
the story or character.
Ds.
I don't think that's the case. But there's the untangible in that I just enjoy myself at it.
Okay.
I know all the problems. I will be the first one to be like, it's not good.
Right.
But damn it, I watched it and I was happy the whole time I was watching it. I was not, when I left the movies, I wasn't like, God, finally it's over. I was
Right.
like, yeah. They blew stuff up and the dinosaurs were great. They were snapping at things and the Triceratops was getting
Absolutely.
pulled up the side of the building and all sorts of great stuff happened with dinosaur transformers.
Absolutely. Overall, I give it a C.
Yeah. Let's see
For the
if
very
it's a-
reason that it is not a good movie. I, like
Yeah.
you, enjoyed myself
Yeah.
while watching it.
Yeah.
And I think if most people, it's already made
alright, yeah.
more money than Jesus.
I know. I love the internet. I love that part of it is that I'm like, see, internet, shut up.
Right. No, it's true.
All 4 of you on the internet who hate on this movie that's all you do your whole life
Right.
are always wrong.
Well, it's not.
And
it'll
never get a good review, and it doesn't deserve one, and it'll make a massive amount of money because Michael Bay knows exactly what he's doing.
He's a life
and
troll,
he knows
yeah.
exactly how to make people want to come to the movie, even though they swore, I'll never go to another one. Then he showed you Optimus Prime mounting up a Tyrannosaurus, and they all went, well, I kind of got to go for that.
That was my experience with
Kind of
it.
got to go for that.
Yeah.
Yep. He knows what he's doing.
No, he does, and they got my money, so
And he knows the quality level of it too. He doesn't.
I think he does, and that kind of upsets me more.
That's kind of upsetting. You're right.
just because he knows it, like he just doesn't give.
He just doesn't care because he knows how to make the money.
Yeah, and I don't appreciate that. But
Yeah.
if he keeps doing dinosaurs doing that, then I'm gonna go see it.
I might keep going and see it.
So
Yeah.
it gets a C. I enjoyed it, but I can't recommend it. But you're gonna see it anyway, so just go see it. You're gonna love it. Whatever.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that's it. Remember to stay tuned for the bonus reviews.
Correct.
But that's the end of our
That's the official
podcast
end of
for the day.
podcast, yeah.
And hopefully we'll get you some more podcasts more soon than 2.5 months.
Sooner, yeah.
Sooner. More soon. More sooner.
Yeah.
There's no right way now. So, yep. Remember iTunes, Stitcher, fillintheblankfilms.com,
Right.
Facebook.com/
All of it.
FITB Podcast, YouTube/FITB Films.
Say iTunes.
I said iTunes,
Okay.
yep. All the things. Go do it. Tell your friends.
Yeah, and children, be safe. Don't punch people down the pants.
Don't pants punch.
Yeah.
All right. Enjoy the late reviews.
Yes.
This is Movie Review. See?
A plus.
And we'll try to make these brief anyways.
Yeah.
All right, Godzilla.
Gojira.
So let's just talk about it, and then we'll just run through our scores real fast. I think
Okay.
that's a good way to do it.
Okay.
Make 1 or 2 sentences about each of our reasonings.
Okay.
But I think, and we've touched on this a little bit so far, that we've alluded to that the monster Godzilla is fantastic.
Oh my God.
And the Godzilla fight at the end of this movie.
The last 45 minutes are totally
awesome.
worth the price of admission.
And Bryan Cranston's good.
Bryan Cranston's
because
good.
He's just being Bryan Cranston, so if you like that, you're going to like that.
Yeah.
But everything else about the humans is kind of like, I don't really care.
I've seen it twice now because I took my mom to go see it after my wife and I went to go see it.
Yeah, I was with you.
Yes, I know.
Not with your mom.
No. You were with us the first time. And it seems to me, especially after the second time I saw it, it seems very apparent to me that the director was not really that interested in the human part of the story. And he was more using it to show the disaster element.
If you read what he said about it, I think that's probably true. I think he just knew that that's not what's important here. It's getting Godzilla right. It was
more giving you an avatar to walk through the different disasters to see the effect that Godzilla has.
And it's not bad. Like, it's not like... I've seen a lot worse.
No, it's just... right.
There's just no reason to really... And because they have, like, that little story where he's trying to get back to his family.
Sure.
There's just no real reason to invest in the character.
And
it might be a little bit of the portrayal. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't... See, here's where I'm split.
Okay.
Because the story was pretty blah in terms of getting the humans...
Yeah.
Getting the Aaron Taylor Johnson's character back to his wife.
Yeah.
I didn't really care about either one of them.
Yeah, David Strathairn was the character I liked more.
Yeah, so same with Ken Watanabe.
Yeah, those guys, I was like, oh, when it cut to them and they're talking about
that
the
felt
monster,
like the real story,
and they're on the ship and following him in the water, I was like, this is great.
And it felt like the real story.
Yeah,
it really did.
Yeah, and of course they all come back together at the end for the final hour.
But Aaron Taylor, see, and here's where I'm split because the dialogue and the story was not any better when Bryan Cranston was in the movie, but he made it interesting.
Well,
you cared way more about him and Juliette Binoche, who was in the movie for all of 5 minutes.
Well, Cranston was just like, I think he was like, yeah, I'll be in this movie, especially because I only have to be in it for a little while. Spoiler alert.
Right.
But like,
you're supposed to say it before you spoil it.
It's too late.
Yeah.
But it's like it's
not that big of a spoiler.
No, but I think he looked at the script and went, wow, it's going to be real hard for people to care about this person to the amount that they need to invest in the rest of this, the character part of this story. So he was doing his darndest to be like, you should care about me and my family. And I was like, I do. Unfortunately, now your adult son looks like he's bored with everything.
Yes. So, and that's where I think I blame Aaron Taylor Johnson was... As an actor, you need to know when
he never seemed motivated to me.
He
kept saying, "I'm going to go do this," and I was like, "Well, you don't look like it.
Right? Tell
you
your
don't
face.
look like you care. Tell your face that you want to do this." And he didn't sell me on the fact that he really believed in it at a certain point, anyways.
Yeah, he was just like he looked like he woke up, walked on set, said his lines, and went back to sleep.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he was just very wooden.
I'm not even against him as an actor.
I'm not either. I'm not either. Although we'll talk about that during our X-Men review.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because it all kind of feeds together.
Yeah.
But the person you're going to see is Godzilla.
Yeah.
The person you care about.
If you're not going to see Godzilla, don't go see this.
Don't go see this.
That's who you care about.
Because and I will say the director. All of a sudden, you've had this whole human story where you're like not caring about the people at all. As soon as Godzilla shows up, the direction actually kicks into high gear, and now he's like showing
like Godzilla gets punched, and you're like, oh god, he's hurt.
The director's making choices that are like clearly designed to make you care about Godzilla.
Yeah.
So obviously he can do it.
I know that's true, and you're like, why didn't you choose a couple more times to make us care about these characters?
Right.
There is, and then the end. It's so good, and he does such a good job of not revealing too much, then revealing it, and then going another step that you didn't expect, and you're like, yes.
And I won't spoil what it is.
Yeah, I didn't want to do that.
But
you probably have already heard, but we're not going to spoil it.
We're not going to spoil it here. But the how Godzilla decides to end the fight.
Yeah.
I think it takes balls as a director to be like, now he's going to do this.
Yeah.
And when you see what I'm talking about, I think you'll know. Not because it's so like shocking or anything. It's just. It's just so badass.
Yeah.
That you're like, okay, you went right for it.
Yeah.
You just dove right in there.
I did have there was a couple logical issues I had, but they were only with the human
part of the
Taylor
story,
Johnson
yes.
plot because they're trying to get nuclear bombs to where Godzilla's going to be, which I won't explain why.
Well, nobody does, so.
Oh, I knew why.
No, I knew why, too.
But they're like, we have to go get them and then transport them on a train. And I was like, wait, what?
You know what? They
Why do
actually
we have to
explain
transport
this.
them on a train?
They actually do explain
Okay,
this.
on the second viewing you saw
And it's because they're concerned that if they transport them by air,
this? The electromagnetic pulse?
yes. Whereas if the train gets knocked out,
Yeah.
then the train's just knocked out.
But
It just stops.
Their intent is to detonate one, right?
Yes, as a lure.
So why don't they just launch a missile
Because
and
as soon as it hits,
blow it up?
because as soon as it hits the electromagnetic thing, it won't blow up. It'll just fall straight. We're down wherever it is. I'm saying that's their logic. I'm not saying I agree with that
right.
logic. I'm saying I think that's the logic that they were
needed
going for.
to explain that one further step then.
Yeah.
Okay.
I-
So wait, hold on. then.
That does imply that they don't know how ballistics works.
It
But-
also implies that they don't understand that a train would also be affected by the electromagnetic
But
pulse.
the idea
and be
is that
stuck.
if the train stops, the train stops. They can pull it off the train
Put it on a car, which would also get stopped by the electromagnetic pulse. Then pull it by horses.
and then pull. Yes. Really, that's what they should have done in the first place. Was just pull it by horses.
They should have just started with horses.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Put
I
wheels
guess.
on the bomb.
I guess. Well, I gave this story of this movie a B- for the aforementioned reasons.
I agree. I actually also gave it a B-. It was a pretty weak story, but the whole thing was just set up to bring Godzilla.
To have this cool fight.
And all the story plot points dealing with Godzilla
Were great.
and the monsters.
Yeah.
Because there's other monsters, the Mutos in this.
Yeah.
All made sense, and they were all fantastic.
Yeah. That's why it's not getting worse than a B-.
Right.
For character, though, I gave it a C.
Absolutely.
And that's ruling out
I
Godzilla.
gave it. I gave
really,
it.
I mean, Godzilla's portrayed really well, but he's not really a character. They're portraying an animal, and they're doing it well.
I gave it a C+.
Okay.
Just because I wanted to give it a B, but I just couldn't because the human storyline, which is a huge part of it.
Yeah.
And that is a flaw in this movie, I will say.
It's more than 50% of the movie.
Yeah. Was weak, and I
Yeah.
didn't care about anybody.
Yeah.
It's kind of like how I felt about Planet of the Apes. The Rise of the Planet of the
Yeah.
Apes was
I don't care about
love
the
the
humans.
Apes
Yeah.
storyline. James Franco and his whole thing
I
was
don't
weak.
care. Yeah.
And that's kind of what we're dealing with here.
Yeah.
I thought that this was weak.
Yeah.
And then anytime that Godzilla showed up, storyline became really strong.
Yeah.
So for me, every point of that C+.
It's almost like they wrote this Godzilla story, and they were like, well, this is only 40 pages.
right.
We
And
need
so
to have
or that he
another
wrote
60.
a whole movie just about monsters, which if you see his first feature, Monsters,
That is what that is.
it wouldn't surprise me at all. Although he does make me care about people in the movie Monsters.
Okay. Well, he's directing the next Star Wars movie.
The
Yeah.
the standalone spin-offs, yes.
Which I'm fine with, actually.
Let's see what he can do. So every point of my C+ goes to Godzilla and his story.
Yeah.
I give no points. to
Oh,
the human story.
okay. All right. All right. Technical, I gave an A.
Absolutely.
Because it was good effects, good convincing
And
stuff.
let me real quickly here say that I appreciate that they did not overuse Godzilla. You never got Godzilla fatigue.
Well, that's the real triumph as a director.
Yes, and I know I've heard some complaints of people being there's not enough Godzilla.
No, there's perfect amount
There's
of
perfect
Godzilla.
amount of Godzilla.
Yeah.
And much like the opposite of Transformers, I promised
Yes.
I'd bring it back to that, was
Yeah.
they never focused on, look at how amazing this whole building is falling over. It was just like,
That's
no.
true. I know Transformers is transfixated by, look, we crushed this.
We crushed it, and
Okay.
look, it's falling apart, and it
In slow
breaks, and in
motion.
slow motion,
Yeah.
and you're like, I've seen it.
Yeah.
Versus this movie was much like, well, of course buildings are falling over. Did you
there's
see
giant,
Godzilla?
There's giant monsters fighting in the middle of the city.
Right.
Yeah. Music, I gave a B. Just
Yeah.
because I don't really
It was
remember
adequate, and
adequate.
it set the tone. It did
Uh-huh.
it did its job, but it didn't
Yeah.
overwhelm me.
So my overall is a B- on this.
I think that's a fair score. I was gonna give it a straight B.
Okay.
I think it's a B movie. I think it's a Godzilla movie.
Yeah.
If you've enjoyed the original Godzilla, if you've enjoyed Godzilla up till now, you will enjoy this movie.
Yeah. I think if you haven't, I'm not a huge Godzilla fan, and I really liked Godzilla.
Okay.
So there's that.
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend it for anybody.
Yeah.
Even kids. I think
It's
kids would like this
it's
movie.
good escapism.
Yeah.
All right, X-Men: Days of Future Past, which we both loved.
Yes.
It's so good.
It was good.
Because it was a call to. Now this is how you do it. By the way, this should be a lesson to the makers of Star Wars 7.
Yes.
Because they're claiming that they're going back to how it was. That's a callback to the nostalgia. That's what this movie was for me.
Absolutely.
This was just like, if you loved X-Men 2 and X-Men 1, then you can't not like this.
You can't not like
and
it
I was
because
like, you're right, I can't.
We gave you the
We
opening
scratched
titles.
every itch that you had had.
We even made you we even both invalidated and made
Yes.
you more okay with the X-Men 3 that you hated so much.
It's true. It's true.
And I don't feel like I'm spoiling too much by saying this. They even made me go, oh, now I can kind of watch X-Men 3. Because I just know that this happens on the darkest timeline.
Yeah.
And it didn't really happen at all. Like
now,
yeah.
I know, it's true. No, so, and it's, of course, written from, like, one of the most famous X-Men storylines.
Days of Future Past by Chris Claremont.
And by all
those
accounts
guys.
is very, very well
Which
done
I have read.
adaptation of that.
And, yeah, well, it captured the spirit
Yes.
of that and kept a number, the spine of it,
Yeah.
while changing plot points that I felt when I was watching it.
We're not.
I understood why they did that.
Yeah.
They're not going to just send Shadowcat back to be the main character. They're going to send Wolverine back. I get it.
I get it.
I get
and they had a plausible explanation as why
Exactly.
he was the one that needed to go.
Yeah.
So I give the story of X-Men an A.
Yes, and I give the story of X-Men an A because I know I've heard some complaints about people not being able to follow the story.
I didn't understand that at all.
Actually, one of the things that while I was watching the movie, I thought to myself was, man, Bryan Singer took a story that could easily be muddled and mishandled and made it scan perfectly throughout.
Yeah.
I thought the direction in here, the storytelling, both, I don't even know if it was the script as much as Bryan Singer's direction.
Yeah.
I thought were just, I would give his direction. We don't have a category
Yeah.
for direction, but if there was, I would give him an A+ for direction.
Yeah, the complaints that I heard about that, and by all means, most people are giving it good reviews.
Yeah.
But the complaints that I heard were that it's hard to follow, and I'm like, well, then you're dumb.
Right.
And that the actors don't look invested,
Which I wholly disagree
and
with.
that you don't care about anyone, and then unlike the first two X-Men, there's no real bigger issue being dealt with, and I'm like, you guys are wrong on every account.
Wrong
here.
on every single account. There. And I don't know. I understand this could be film school reaching.
Yeah.
But I thought it wasn't that much of a stretch for me to think. Obviously, they've taken the X-Men and now they're almost making commentary on American history.
Yeah.
In this movie, like you go back to the 70s,
Yeah.
a time when America was disillusioned and hiding that through drugs,
Yeah.
and we find Professor X, who is hiding his powers because he's disillusioned by using drugs that look like heroin.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't even like that big of it wasn't that hard to draw the symbolism there.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And or spoiler alert, they talk about how Magneto says he didn't try to kill Kennedy, although that's what he's been blamed for.
Yeah.
And they ask him why, and he says because Kennedy was one of us.
Yeah.
Implying possibly that Kennedy was a mutant. But more importantly, I think implying that he was a forward-thinking person who wanted equality.
Yeah. Because that's what the first two X-Men movies are all about.
Right.
Like, hey, it's okay to be different.
And I think the reason that people felt that there wasn't as much social commentary in this one was because they weren't as on the nose with mutants or gays.
Yeah.
Like they were in the second one where they're like, have you tried not being a mutant?
Yeah.
They were widening it out so we could all find our niche
Yeah.
in this X-Men world.
Yeah. No, I agree with all that.
Yeah.
And maybe some of that is a little film aesthetics-y, but whatever.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's what you're supposed to be able to do.
Yeah, so-
With a good movie, you're able to do that.
Right, exactly.
So I give the characters an A because,
yes.
I'm not a big fan of Mr. Tumnus.
I actually liked him more
He
in
was
this movie
fine,
than...
but Professor, when you see Patrick Stewart
you're right, there's no...
and
Ian McKellen.
you're just like, yes,
Yeah,
this is
there's
it.
no denying, yeah.
And then, I don't want to spoil the ending, but the characters that come back at the end, you're just like, gosh,
Yeah.
I just want X-Men 3 now. Now I want, I wish the next X-Men movie was with the original X-Men cast. That's
Yes.
all I'm going to say.
Yes.
I don't think it is, but I wish it was.
I don't think it is either,
'Cause
but
don't
I
think
too
they
wish
have
it
them
was.
contractually. But they make you want that so much.
So much.
I feel like he knew he was doing that.
I know. I feel like he did too. He knew what he was doing.
Technical, I gave a B+. Well,
hold on, I gave it-
there's some more character stuff.
I was just going to say,
Yeah.
I gave the characters an A-.
Okay.
Just because I liked all the characters, but there's a whole swath of mutants that just get no character development
Well, that's
whatsoever.
true. Yeah.
But I also can't complain too much about that because my number one complaint with First Class was I really only care about Professor X, Magneto, and Mystique.
Yeah.
I don't care about all the rest of those guys.
Yeah.
And apparently someone heard me because that's exactly what they did with this movie was just
Yeah.
make it about those three and... They showed mutant powers being awesome
And
with the other
Wolverine.
guys. And Wolverine, but he wasn't in First Class.
Yeah.
I mean, he was in for a second, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean. So I cared about that core group of people.
Yeah.
And then with the rest of the mutants, they were just like, look how awesome their powers are. And I was like, you know what? You're right.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted.
He was basically he was telegraphing from the start. These people are not important to the story.
No.
And you're right, they're not.
No, and he telegraphs that clearly at the beginning because they all die right away.
I know you want to talk about Quicksilver because he's like the best new addition.
Yes.
And as soon as I saw him in the film, I was like, okay, I like this guy. The kid who plays him is on American Horror Story, and he's a really good young actor.
Mm-hmm. He was fantastic.
But that whole sequence with him, because he comes in and he leaves the movie, but it's so good.
Right. I've heard complaints that he leaves the movie, but I was like, no, it makes sense that he
It's
would
fine
leave
that
the
he
movie.
leaves the movie. I mean, yeah, you liked him, so you wanted him in it more,
Right.
but it's fine that he leaves.
Well, and it also makes sense. Professor X is not going to just like involve random children in
Yeah.
the rest of this plot.
Yeah.
Like,
But no, that part is great. And then you were going to say something about Godzilla.
well, right, which is
Into
because
this.
now we have to look forward to next year is the Avengers,
Yeah.
in which we'll also be featuring Quicksilver, but he'll be played by Aaron Taylor Johnson from the Godzilla movies.
Yeah.
So, within the span of 2 weeks, I saw Aaron Taylor Johnson do something, and I was like, you're really unimpressive.
Yeah.
Followed directly by this other Quicksilver who was just
Very
fantastic.
impressive.
Yeah, knocked it out of the park, had a wonderful
And
sense
then
of humor.
he won't be playing him in the
and
Avengers.
he won't be playing him. It'll be played by the boring guy.
I know.
So now, I'm sure that Aaron Taylor Johnson, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, that I'm sure
Yeah.
he can do something interesting
yeah,
there, but
he's fine in Kick-Ass. Like,
I'm not as excited for
no, now
Quicksilver.
you're not as excited anymore.
No.
It's true.
But yeah, definitely go see that. And this is just one example, but there's just a million callbacks to the previous movies, to the comic books, to all sorts that just make you so excited.
I know. They're just throughout it.
Throughout. But a great
we
one
could
is...
talk about this movie for hours, but we're not
Yeah.
gonna. Yeah.
But in the elevator, Quicksilver's
Yeah.
riding in the elevator with Magneto.
Yeah.
And he's like, so you can manipulate metal, huh? And Magneto's like, yeah. He's like, weird. My mom knew a guy who could do that. That's it.
Yeah.
Now, if you know the comic books, you know that Quicksilver is Magneto's son.
Yeah.
So is Scarlet Witch.
Yeah.
Is his daughter.
Yeah. Which is what the
so
two characters that are in
the
Avengers.
Right. But they never go further than that. But it's just that's the nice. That's
Yeah.
Bryan
That's
Singer
the
was
nice
smart.
little thing
yeah.
where it's like, I don't want to make that a part of this story,
Right.
but I'll throw it out there for the fans.
just a little tip of the hat that yes, we know that.
Yeah. You know what bothers me about those characters even being in the Avengers movie is that the world that they've created in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, in my opinion, is incompatible with the X-Men.
I agree.
So to bring in X-Men characters into that is going to bring in all sorts. See, I'm instantly just like I did with Iron Man 3, where I was like, why isn't Captain America doing this?
Right.
Why doesn't Thor just come down and why
Right.
do you even need any of these other guys when you have Thor? Like questions like that, which I already have. Now, if you're going to tell me the X-Men exist in this universe, I'm going to be like, where have they been?
Right. And not only
They
that.
were formed to do shit like this.
Correct. and not only that, but if you're telling me that mutants exist in this world,
Yeah.
Now
isn't
it's incompatible because the mutants exist in a world where everybody hates them,
yeah
which cannot be a world in which everybody's excited about these
about
other
these
people
other
with superpowers.
Exactly.
So you can't have it both ways.
So I'm wondering how they're going to deal with this, but
I'm sure that they won't.
I'm sure you're right. I'm sure that they won't at all, but I do have a problem with that. I'm
Yeah.
like, your Marvel Cinematic Universe, which I enjoy, is incompatible with X-Men.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm not upset that Marvel doesn't have the X-Men back in a certain sense, especially after this film, which is better than any Marvel movie, in
Yes.
my opinion, that's
Yes.
come out recently.
Yes.
It's better than the Avengers.
It's better than the Avengers because it's not just a Saturday.
Well, it has something to say.
Yes, it's not just a Saturday morning cartoon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so moving on, B+ on tech for me, because as
I gave it a
is
straight B.
usual of the X-Men movies, there's a couple effect issues.
Right. Oh no. I gave it a B- just because there's a few effects where I was just like, ugh.
But that's
it was a few
also a
times-
Bryan Singer thing. He doesn't have a very. I think he has a real good eye for character. I don't think he has a good eye for cinematography. His
his
visuals
cinematographer's
are
good.
never mind blowing to me.
Yeah.
In any of the X-Men movies,
Yeah.
it's always kind
They
of
always
like
look good to me, but
it looks fine, but there's nothing that's really catching your eye. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's you're more interested in the people and the what's happening than you are in the visuals.
well, the reason I gave it a B- is because there's some Mystique things where you're like, that's a CGI effect,
Yeah.
and some jet things that you're like, okay, that's a CGI.
Oh, I did
effect.
like that the actual X-Jet showed up
Mm-hmm.
at the beginning. I was like, good, it's not the stupid SR-70 one.
And then I also give it just because, like, they're set up in China,
Yeah.
for the future sequences.
Yeah.
And inside the little temple that they're in looks really nice and cool with
The
like
outside
stained
looks
glass.
like a total set.
But yeah, the outside just looks like
It's
the
like
most generic.
foam rocks hitting
Yeah.
people and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it totally does.
So I just felt
But
like
I was actually okay with that in a sense because that was like the first X-Men.
yeah,
There's stuff like that.
No,
in the
you're
first
right. You're
X-Men,
right.
Which I don't think he did on purpose. I think that's Bryan Singer not being adept at that kind of thing, which is just fine. Like, you don't have to be. But anyways, so then music I gave an A+ because,
So did I.
dang it was the good old X-Men theme that I'd wanted.
And it was just, it's a classic.
Like
X-Men score, it's a classic, just symphonic.
Yeah, it's just good.
They came up with a new theme for Professor X, which got me choked up a few times in the movie, especially towards the end. I won't spoil what happens, but just there's some cross-cutting with like the slow, sad music. That's Professor X's theme that just gets you. So I was really a big fan of that.
So overall, I went with an A.
Yes. Overall, I would go with a solid A. Because it's a fine return to form, and it reminded me why I love X-Men.
It made me feel better about this year, but not great, because I still feel like the rest of the summer is not going to be great.
Yeah.
I feel like that might have been the best movie of the summer.
Might be, yeah.
For as far as blockbusters.
But it was surprising because it did.
I didn't expect it to be that good at all.
Right. And just as a final note on X-Men.
That rarely happens also.
Right.
I'm rarely like, am I like, well, this is going to suck. And then I'm like, oh my God, it was so good. Which is what happens. So that made me like it even more.
Correct. And just as a final note on X-Men, I want to give it the credit it deserves, because I would argue that not since The Dark Knight in 2008 has the climax and big finale of a movie been an existential choice instead of a punch 'em out, like, massive brawl.
Oh, that's true.
Because at the end of The Dark Knight, really, I mean, we have the fight with the Joker,
but it's a choice.
But at the end, what it really comes down to is Harvey Dent flipping that coin, and then Batman making the choice to take the blame for all of that. And that's really the big moment of that movie. There is a similar moment here, and there's just very little punching going on.
It's so much better.
And it's just it's a choice of who do we want to be?
Yeah.
As people, do we want to choose hope or despair? You know, that type of thing. And I respect it so much for acknowledging that I'm intelligent enough to find that climactic.
Yeah, to find that as exciting as mutants fighting.
Correct.
Yeah.
And they did. They challenged me with that, and I enjoyed that about it.
Well, and they gave you the big mutant fight right at the opening of this movie.
Right.
Which was nice. And they have some cross-cutting to it. And, you know, they have fights throughout.
They have fights throughout, and even during the existential choice, they give you a little bit of fights, but it's not really about that.
Yeah.
It's really, really not.
Yeah.
So I guess I just overall would give it an A because I felt like this movie respected my intelligence.
It did, yeah. Very nice. All right. That's the review. And that is also the podcast.
It sure is.